Dobar dan svima. Evropska unija je objavila novi plan rasta za Zapadni Balkan i sada nam je naravno potrebno pojašnjenje šta nam Evropska unija poručuje tim planom, šta mi sa svoje strane treba da uradimo da bismo najbolje iskoristili ovaj plan i ono što je najvažnije i zbog čega smo verovatno svi ovde da s punim pravom pitamo ima li tu mene u ovom planu, znači šta i gde sam ja kao preduzetnik u planu koji nam Evropska unija nudi. Plan je značajan, oko 6 milijardi evra je opredeljeno za Zapadni Balkan do 2027. godine, od toga nešto više od 1,5 milijardu evra je za Srbiju. To je samo materijalni deo, ali plan je mnogo širi od tog iznosa, te je neophodno da ga dobro razumemo da bismo ga maksimalno iskoristili. Imamo nekih, ajde da kažemo, 40-45 minuta da sve ovo pojasnimo. Posljednjih 5 minuta ću ostaviti za pitanja iz sale, ukoliko ih bude bilo, a svakako i ako ih ne bude, ovo je prilika da sve ljude koji se ovde nalaze u pauzama i u onom delu za druženje iskoristite i zaustavite i pitate sve što vas zanima. Sa nama su danas na ovom panelu Emanuel Žiofre, ambasador Evropske unije u Srbiji, Tanja Miščević, ministarka za evropske integracije u vladi Republike Srbije, Igor Kronja, viši savjetnik u Privrednoj komori Srbije i Kori Jeduički, predsjednica Centra za visoke ekonomske studije CEVES. Da kažemo, moram da objasnim skraćenicu, da bude jasno. Gospodine Žiofre, delimično ste nam govorili o planu u uvodnom izlaganju, ali ja bih da preciznije i konkretnije za jednog preduzetnika objasnite šta Evropska unija poručuje Srbiji ovim planom.
I think I got your questions here in Serbian. Look,
Do you need translation? Sorry.
The translation is, but it's not.
For the question, sorry.
Yes, no, I think I understood your question. So we need to think that the plan, as it was conceived from the beginning, was starting from a very clear pre-analysis, which was that the Western Balkans, including Serbia, were lagging behind to the European Union. And even if the growth rate, particularly in Serbia, that is the most successful of the six, was higher than the European Union, it will take a very long time in order to close the gap. So we need to do something in order to accelerate this. And this had to be done in a way that was complementary to integration itself and accession and membership talks. So here we have various pillars that are defining what concretely this plan means, which is your question. The first aspect of the plan is the first pillar. So how we can integrate the Western Balkans into the single market even before accession. Because we know that the way membership and accession talks have been conducted so far by the European Union historically is that there's a day before and a day after. So the day before you are outside the European Union and the day after you are inside the European Union completely. You have to take all the responsibility. So the accession is about preparing the country to take all the responsibility. With this new system we have the possibility of integrating the single market in certain areas even before accession. For example, the single European payment areas, which allow payment to be made within the EU as if they were domestic payments. So if you make a payment between Paris and Tallinn, it's the same thing as you make a payment between Paris and Marseille. And this is the offer to Serbia, and we hope that Serbia will soon be part of the single European payment area, which makes a saving of about €500 million every year, both for companies and also for citizens. If you have to transfer remittance, for example, from Austria or Sweden to Serbia, you don't pay the fees. If you have a company and you want to buy your input from Novi Sad to a company in Portugal, you don't pay fees. Then the trade. We know that the EU is the main trading partner of Serbia by far, 60%, but we also know that there are huge queues at the borders, and I remember when I arrived here 3 years ago, I saw a tweet of Marco Chavez that was actually displaying a video of trucks waiting at one of the borders. So we need to get this better. We need to reduce the cost of spending time in queue. So these are the green lanes. So facilitating the transport of goods, reducing the waiting time, and therefore reducing costs for big companies, but also for SMEs, because I think the SMEs are the ones that are paying the higher price because they don't have the financial muscles to go through these long queues. Then another areas where we want to work better is the digital market. We want to integrate more Serbia into the digital union. Serbia is already quite advanced in terms of digitalization, so they have very good. You have very good capacity to accelerate this. For example, the digital wallet that would make easier to open a bank account or to register university, and a number of administrative steps that you need to take. We want also to turn Serbia into a wireless zone, so we want to make sure that local communities, local municipalities have access to provide wireless connection to the citizens. These are very concrete steps that we want to take and we will take together with Serbia in the coming 3 years. Plus, of course, there are funding, which is about 6 billion euros, as the Commissioner said, more than 1.5 billion euros for Serbia. Funding that will be delivered once specific reforms are actually done. So we can discuss more in details about the reform agenda, which is really a very important part of the growth plan. But the whole idea is that you make reforms, and if the reforms are actually implemented properly, then the Commission will deliver funds. This is exactly the same method used by the European Commission with member states during the pandemic. When we launched the almost 1 trillion euros programs, we had this. And then the last pillar I want to say is regional integration, which is really, really important. The region is too fragmented. We needed to better integration, and in order to access a single market, you also need to be able to integrate regionally.
Is this 1.5 billion for next 3 years on top of the 400 million that EU is investing per year in Serbia, and why is EU investing so much here? I mean, helping.
It is on top, indeed. The IPA funding will continue as before. The IPA funding is there to prepare Serbia and the Western Balkans to be able to act as a member state. So we will continue with IPA funding to fund both infrastructures, but also various programs with ministries. The various also assist Serbia to be part of key programs like Erasmus+, Horizon Europe for Innovations, etc. This will continue. But we need more. The idea is that we need more. The 6 billion is 2 of grants and 4 of loans on very conditional terms, very favorable terms. We invest because we believe in Serbia. This is an investment in the European Union itself. We want to be able to count on more member states soon. We want, of course, these member states to come inside the European Union as valuable and sincere members of the Union, to make it stronger. And in order for the Union to be strongest, we need strong member states as well. So to have a strong Serbia with a strong economy, with a prosperous situation, with democratic institutions, with the rule of law, will make the European Union a more stable, resilient, and stronger actors on the international scene.
Thank you. This is Miščević. Why is this, preći ću na engleski iz why is this plan a good news for Serbia?
Why is so good news for Serbia? First and foremost, because after 20-something years of alignment with the European standards, we are there in order to produce the results. It goes beyond opening the clusters or discussing the closing of some closing benchmarks. It also gave us the growth plan, especially pillars 1 and 2, gave us the opportunity to show that even before membership, we are ready to participate in some of the policies of the EU single market. Green lanes are something which is crucial, but also SEPA, Single European Payment Area. But also, I will emphasize something that we did the first in the region, and this is we presented the idea of the agreement on conformity assessment, which is our idea that there are goods that we can produce and have CE mark, the same mark that the goods that are produced in the proper EU are used. So after 20-something years of our alignment, that gave us the opportunity to, beyond the merit-based approach, show that we are part of the European trade, that means European market, but also European environmental protection, digital transformation, as well as the security and migration issues.
So what you're saying it's that this plan is basically accelerating this whole process that we already have for 20 years.
Exactly.
And how much is it accelerating it? What would be your hope?
Let me remind you of the new methodology. When we started negotiating, we started using the old methodology, the one that has been introduced for Montenegro and then for Serbia back 2012, 2013. But then in 2020, new methodology has been introduced for, at that moment, North Macedonia, Albania, opening of the negotiations, and immediately Serbia said we will apply the new methodology. Why we immediately said so? Because that methodology envisaged so-called phase-in. So that there are areas of the European policies that we can be part of even before the membership. Why this is crucial for the negotiation process? Because once when you are part of the EU policy, that immediately means that you are fulfilling criteria in certain chapters for closing them and going faster into the integration process. Of course, everything is in the hands of the member states. For us, this is opportunity. For them, this is a political decision.
So when is this plan going to reach me personally as an entrepreneur? I mean, should I sit and wait for the plan to come to me, or should I go and try to meet it?
It was quite contrary. So we've been pushed by companies, especially through the Chamber of Commerce, through Forum of Foreign Investors, the Foreign Investor Council, AmCham. They've been asking us constantly, I think now for some years, to help them in terms of the payment in euros. So they were actually the instrument of us to respond of their needs.
So you've been pushed?
Not being pushed, but the idea was taken from their side, from the business side. But we also noticed that single European payment area will also help us. Whatever we are paying outside of Serbia will be without any additional charges for us paying that, being that remittances when the money is coming from the EU member state, but also the payment of goods, especially or internet payment will be even less expensive than it was up to now. Or the custom, speeding up the custom procedures. We call it green lanes. But 300,000 trucks are traveling through the, you know, of course, Mr. Kronya much better, through the region and exiting into Schengen system. Apparently, there is an astonishing figure that I heard 10 days ago for the first time. They are waiting per year 3,000 years on the border crossings. So 3 millennia they are losing. How much money, how much effort, and how much money could stay here in order for boosting exactly the convergence that is needed. Those are the astonishing figures that we have to have in mind, and all of this hurts us all. The good is more expensive if spends more time waiting on the border crossing. It will be more expensive for sailing in the EU member states. It will be more expensive here, and that's the bottom line, to help us to speed up our own development.
Thank you. Mr. Kronya, speaking in a sports language, we invited on the European Championship on the market of 500 million customers. Is Serbian economy ready for that competition, especially small and medium enterprises? And how does the preparation for those matches look like? How is the training system?
We are training for more than 10 years in this process. So around between 65 and 70% of export from Serbia is exported to European market, European Union market. So those products meets all the criteria and standardizations and specifications that are requested from European market. Also, I would like to say about waiting on borders, which Mr. said also. Minimum waiting time for truck is 4 hours. So yes, that is putting pressure on prices of our products.
4 hours means it's very good time. I mean, at
4
present-
hours is minimum.
But
So they can wait 20 hours, 24 hours.
I want to say, if you're waiting 4 hours, you're happy.
You are happy, yes. That is the luckiest driver on the border. So also I would like to say that the Serbian economy is consisted 99% of small and medium enterprises. So when you see that 99% employs 64% of workforce in Serbia, so those companies are crucial driver for our economy, and they are meeting all the specifications and needs for European market.
It's a tough competition, so you need to improve yourself constantly. So I asked in a sports language, what is the training process in Serbia? What are you doing to make, because Europe is moving every minute.
European Union is providing our companies with fundings, with good loans, and also we are having a lot of technical assistance from European Union. Through Chamber, we had a few projects like CBAM trainings that are preparing our companies for time that will come.
Mrs. Udovički, Serbia should accelerate its economic growth. In the document that I've seen, they're saying that we should exceed at least 5%, maybe even more than that. Is that feasible?
I think it's very important that we take a bit away the focus that we have right now on growth rate and focus more on the quality of growth rate, because development, preparing for the European market, becoming one of the developed and high-income countries in the world is not a sprint, it's a marathon. And the fact is that we've been using short-termist expensive policies to raise our growth rate to where it is now. And we all know what those policies have been. Mainly a focus on attracting foreign or large companies. In our rules, it is incentives that are offered to anybody who can afford large investments, but we don't have that many large companies that are domestic. So basically, attracting investment at all costs. And in addition to that, we have a problem of a very uncompetitive domestic market where, especially public procurement, where companies, increasingly there is only one competitor for public procurement, both by the state and by public companies. So we don't offer our companies a real training on the domestic market. In fact, and this is what I want to call attention to, we have companies that have opted to compete, to play, as you would say, on the European market, because the disadvantage on the domestic market is so big, they're doing better there. But even on the European market, they are playing with a handicap, because our agency for export insurance and financing does not even meet the minimum possibilities of offering support to small and medium companies that the OECD agreement on state support to export credits offer. So every single SME in Europe or even the OECD competes in the global market with a substantial advantage compared to our SMEs. We don't have a development bank. We tax our small companies far more expensive than we do large companies. This is unheard of. The European Union has a rule that says think small first. We de facto do the opposite. Now, the basic question is, what does the European Growth Plan bring? It finally brings the European attention to these problems. We, as an organization that have been focusing on promoting the domestic economy and fundamental development. Don't anybody get me wrong that we are against foreign direct investment. We just don't think we should use it to compensate for problems, for shortcomings in the environment that we create for our domestic companies. That's really our focus. And now we feel that Europe is with us, that it's paying attention as well, because it takes time to become a European member state. We are a future European member state, I believe that. But in the meantime, structures are changing. Right now, we feel that very good and successful companies, exporter companies of Serbia, are having difficulties on the European market because Europe is having difficulties. Germany is in a very hard place. It will take time for the German economy to restructure. They are our main partner. And if they fail, they're gone. We will not have those companies again. And they are fantastic companies. Their median age is 22 years. So 22, half of these companies are older than 22 years. They have grown with a huge effort day by day. And we have institutions like RAS, like AOFI itself, let me say, the people we know there, they're killing themselves to help. But you have 6 people, or maybe 10 people in charge of SMEs, and I don't know how many in charge of foreign direct investment. You have no possibility. All that the state needs to do is put 15 million in a budget line, not spend the 15 million euros, just increase the available insurance for credits that are over 5 years in export. So if you're exporting a sophisticated machine, you expect that somebody will be repaying that in over 5 years. You're not going to get any support from the Serbian system.
I'll ask you in a minute about your advices about that, but before that, I mean, I want to return a little bit to this growth thing. As an entrepreneur, as I said, I will pose here on this panel. I see that there is a plan for growth. Is there, how would I say, anything, any supplement for my own growth foreseen in this plan? What would you say?
No, there is. Well, first of all, the emphasis now in the reform agenda is on 2 things. And actually, this is important that I say, and it's not 100% yet an answer to what you say. But the reform agenda is focusing on reform of state aid and reform of public enterprises. There is a misperception in Serbia's public that it is state aid that prevents the government from, state aid rules of the European Union that prevents the government from assisting small and medium enterprises. That is not true. There is a rule that says the minimis aid is only 200, up to 200, and now it's 300,000 euros, and then they say we can't get more than that because of the EU. No, you can't get more without the government having a clear program, without the government knowing why it's giving you money and explaining to the EU that it's regional development. In the European Union, with the state aid rules that exist there, after Corona, companies were able to get up to 2.5 million euros, almost no questions asked. we could have been there. We would have been able to maybe get that money. But we need investment. This is the problem. Anything that the EU asks us to do requires the government to do something with its capacity to deliver that.
So we will hear probably a little bit later some neutral on that. But Mr. Geoffrey, you mentioned, and the plan is mentioning reform agenda. What is reform agenda? Can you explain to us this term in a very short way?
So a reform agenda is a list of reforms that Serbia commits to undertake within a certain time frame. And we have, so it's really a product of the Serbian government and through consultations and cooperations and dialogue also with the EU institutions to indicate we will do a number of things by December 2027 with the timetable for each reforms in 4 areas. The first 3 areas are very linked to the socioeconomic development that we need to spur. So the first one is business environment. We need to have a better business environment in Serbia in order precisely to be able to get SMEs to grow, the economy to go more fluid, more integrated with the European Union. It will entail a number of steps that will make the economy better integrated with the EU and better functioning for the local economic actors. The second sector is about the transitions that the world is undertaking at the moment for which we need to prepare, and they will help the economy. First transition, of course, is the transition towards a decarbonized economy. Serbia is working on reducing the use of carbon-based energy. We need to accelerate, but we also need to prepare to address the problems that will come with it. We have to prepare for the transitions, also for people. We need to make sure that they have the right skills. And the other transition is the digital transition, for which Serbia is a relatively good place, but for which more needs to be done. The third area is about the future generations. We need to make sure that we have the skills for the jobs of today and tomorrow. So all the areas of training, capacity building, skills with reforms that address these issues. And then the fourth one is the issue of reforms in the fundamental issues. So fight against corruption, the functioning of democratic institutions, the fight against organized crime, etc., etc. These are important per se because, of course, rule of law and democracy are key values of the European Union, and we want to make sure that we grow in that areas as well, but also have, of course, a very important impact on the economic growth. Because if I'm a company and I have a problem and I have to go to court, I want, of course, the issue to be decided relatively speedily by an impartial judge, independent, etc. So we calculated that also the reforms or the fundamentals, beyond having a positive and essential impact on the level of rule of law, will also have a positive impact on the economic growth. So these are the 4 areas. So the government has been working on these reforms. The idea is that once adopted by the government, this will be presented to member states, and the member states will have a look, and then the EU will say this reform agenda is ambitious enough, and therefore we can proceed with the prepayment of the growth plan, which is about 7%, so with more than 100 million euros that will be prepaid. So this is the idea, and it's exactly the same thing we did with member states, again, during the post-corona program.
Mr. Minister, can we fulfill this? I mean, you heard the ambitions of European Union with the reform agenda.
Yeah,
And it's a short period until December 27th.
But we prepared it. So we presented, we gave the idea what are the areas that we saw as a possibility to speed up the process. And until the end of the year, we have some serious movements in terms of, for instance, in the area of fundamentals audit recommendations. the recommendations after the last, but also with the previous elections. Then in terms of the media freedoms, we have the obligation which stem from the adopted media laws from the end of last year, but also to boost the socioeconomic development progress in terms of the action plan on the energy diversification of both sources and routes, and in the area of, if I'm not wrong, the public enterprises with the start of implementation of the law that will match them with the EU standards in this respect. But there are things that are going to cover the next year and the years after, and that includes also two big areas which I have to remind Mrs. Udovicki. We are still not member of the European Union, and our obligation is to align with the EU standards in the area of public procurement before 27 and in the area of state aid mid-27. That means the June 27. But according to the Stabilization and Association Agreement, state aid for us is not the same one as exists in the European Union member states. It simply could not. We are under heavy scrutiny in order to prove that we are capable of doing so. That is why we cannot use the state aid like the same way as the member states. And of course, OECD. Membership is beyond our reach for time being. But saying that, there are two important things for all of us to know. Next panel, if I'm not wrong, we will speak much more about the Ministry of Economy support to the SMEs. But I will point out on some of the issues that already now can be used. First, this is the direct support that goes through the Ministry of Economy from the budget to the SMEs in order to prepare them for exporting, but also for boosting. We are also using a lot of this cross-border cooperation projects. We visited several companies in last half a year that are dealing with processing wood, if I'm not wrong, in Novi Pazar, that they started working as a small family company, so enterprise, with the support of both budget money and also cross-border cooperation funds. But let me point out on something that we are now part of. This is the single market program, which means that our companies could use funds that are available from the industrial development or the industrial strategy of the European Union. Last not least is something of digital capacity. This is the business development in terms of the digital. I think that we have hundreds of companies that applied for boosting the digital know-how or the digital knowledge on digital instruments for further development. There will be the competition. I mean, you know much better than I know, but as a Lyme, I can see that using the new innovative digital tools in doing business is the most challenging and biggest competition in that respect. So the growth plan as well as the reform agenda, if you see that together, give us this possibility, this opportunity to find the best way to our development. But one thing that we forgot, and that is something that might also ask Emanuela or all of us. If you remember, one of the most tangible results out of the regional integration is roaming as at home. That means we are not paying fees or roaming charges when traveling in the Western Balkans. There is no...
Especially on data.
Especially on data. So that is also one of the aspects out of the growth plan that we together can boost, as that not only that is boost the exchange, but also the sense of belonging to the wider area of, I know that this is not up to the European Commission, Commissioner Varheli, or even member states. This is the private companies that are providers of the signal in the European Union, but maybe we can together jointly ask for understanding in that respect.
Couldn't agree more. Mr. Kronja, we heard even on this panel that there is the difference between subsidiaries for the foreign investments and for the domestic investment. There's this feeling that domestic investors are not getting the best aid they could get. So is that going to change?
According to law for investment, Republic of Serbia, investors are treated equally. So foreign and domestic investors have all incentives equal. But when we go back 20 years ago, we had unemployment rate around 24%. So we needed investors. We needed someone who will employ those people and also who will bring technology. Now situation changed. We have unemployment rate around 8.2%. So we are not attracting work-intensive industries and investors who are interested in that kind of business. We are attracting high-tech investments here, and our domestic companies are developing their own workforce, and they are now those providers of technology here also.
So you would say that this perception is wrong, or it's not standing anymore?
It is only perception. Let's say like this, because foreign investors can meet all the requirements that are needed for incentive. So they can invest, I don't know, 8 million euros. They can employ 100 workers, and then they can get those incentives. But we need also to promote those incentive schemes or those fundings from European Union, cheap loans, everything to those SMEs that can for them to meet the requirements and to get incentivized loans.
Thank you. Mrs. Dulički, you were a bit critical in your first answer. So may I ask you now, as an expert and as an independent expert, to give us some advices? What would you add to this plan, or what would you emphasize or say that we need to put in order to get the best results?
Well, thank you, but that's really a great question that an independent activist, more than a consultant, is always
expert.
Eager to get expert. Thank you. I will list the programs, the European Union programs that actually have been made available for candidate states as well, including Serbia. And Serbia is, I think, signed agreements on all of them. We heard earlier today about Horizon, and this is an extremely successful program in which Serbia participates. Connecting Europe facility, the LIFE program, which is actually related to environmental and climate protection, Digital Europe, the European Single Market Program, which Minister Miščević mentioned, EU for Health, EPERT 3, and we've also mentioned the Western Balkans Investment Framework and the Western Balkans Enterprise Development and Innovation Facility. These are, I didn't read the numbers, these are billions of euros that in the end a good chunk can be made available for Serbia. They can be made available for Serbia's SMEs, companies, not only SMEs, independent of whether the government does the reform agenda or not, meets those requirements, strengthens its institutions to draw in funds or not. This is what happens with Horizon. Biosense and others have simply are institutes that have applied and gotten the money. The problem is that our companies don't have an intermediary. They are too small, too weak. Even for Horizon, it took at least 10, 15 years for our institutes, where everybody has a PhD, to actually learn to access these funds. These are substantial funds, and I think I call on the international community of partners, not just the EU, but also on the companies themselves. Let's get organized. Let's use better also the Chamber of Commerce. Let's ask the Chamber of Commerce to use its resources better. We can look at what are the needs and which are of these aspects of these programs that our companies could get if they can get better organized. But we cannot expect Serbia's SMEs themselves alone to accomplish that.
Last Monday, we've got the final yes from the European Commission after inter-service consultation. And we immediately started with the procedure, which means obtaining opinion, mišljenja ministarstava. Once when I finish here today, I will check with the colleagues how we are in that respect in order to speed up the process of the adoption of the document. We informed the European Commission that this is it, that this is the final version of the document, together with the annex. Annex is the narrative part, so we explain a part of the table. We explain what each and every step will bring, who is the responsible person, and what are the time frame for the adoption. And the only one, if I'm not wrong, in the region, we are going to have the separate annex, which will be the suggestions coming from the National Convention on the European integration. So a collection of their suggestions for the better implementation of the document. We are very proud on this. Parallel with this, the European Commission is preparing the implementation directive, which will be the endorsement of the reform agendas, and at the same time preparing the IPA committee, where the member states are going to say their opinion regarding the reform agenda. That will be not that for the dates, maybe Emanuele knows better. I'm traveling this afternoon in Brussels, so I will know the exact date. But we are still missing the financial and loan instrument, so the two agreements on financial and loan instrument in order to start getting even pre-financing. That is additional thing that yet to be sorted out. Again, horizontally, it's not Serbia, this is a document for all of us.
Well, very good. I think that Tanya has explained, but basically now that the 5 of the Western Balkan partners have basically finalized. We just missing Serbia, the final formal agreement of the government. We have this agenda. The procedures foresee that the Commission needs to consult the IPA committee, which is now what is happening, and because we're talking about of 1,000 pages between the narrative part and the agenda, so it's a very substantial document for the 5. Will take a bit of time for the IPA, probably through a written procedures, but we're talking about a few more days, a week. And then, on the basis of the opinion of the IPA committee, the Commission will take an implementing decision that will basically end the process, and there will be a decision to disburse those funds against the implementation of these agreed reforms. As Tanya said, we still need the financing and loan agreement, which is basically 2 international agreements signed with a partner country that will, I guess, will have to go through the Skupština as well. So in order for the money to be able to flow, because this is a new system, half of the money will be budget support. So the money will go directly, half of the money will go directly, once the reforms are met, in the coffer of Serbia. So there are a number of rules about how this will happen, the reporting, the auditing, etc., that need to be fixed. this is still missing. We still have to do it. In terms of whether we do it together, of course, the preference is to have all the 6 together, but the priority is also to be fast, to start the rollout of the plan. So we're working now very fast to have these implementing decisions for those that are ready, and the loan and facility agreement agreed, signed, and ratified as soon as possible.
Thank you. Our time is up. Unfortunately, thank you for this panel. Dakle, hvala vam na strpljenju na ovom panelu. Vreme nam je isteklo, bilo bi još dobrih pitanja. Ono što sledi je panel Srbije i Evropska unija, oprema za privredu. Nastavljamo odmah. Zahvaljujem se još jedanput učesnicima ovoga panela.